Hey everyone, welcome back to Two Idiots Review. I'm Caleb.
And I'm Hannah, and we just finished watching Venom, and now we're going to talk about it.
Got a little Venomized pops here.
Yes, we have our Venomized pops. I waited in line unintentionally for this, and then I ended up getting it.
I just bought mine online.
Oh, yeah, I was in line for something else, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll take that too. But anyways... Spoiler? Well, I don't know. Should we do a non-spoiler or should we just spoil the crap out of it?
Well, we can do a quick, just a little, well, I don't know. It might be hard.
Yeah, that's right. Screw it. We're just going to spoil. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, save this, and then come back. The good. Let's start with the good.
All right. I think the good was I would say about the second half of the movie. First half, not so much. The second half, like once he became Venom, I feel like Venom was the best part of the movie. Not necessarily Eddie Brock, but Eddie Brock and Venom together, like their interactions together and everything. I felt like was the best part of the movie for me. I felt like there was a little bit of a comedic, little like almost like buddy like type thing going on there.
They're having a buddy comedy.
Kind of. So, I mean, there's just like, if they were traveling cross country, like this would have been like a road trip type movie. But yeah, I thought their interactions together were humorous. It was funny. It was interesting, and I felt like that was once he became Venom, I felt like the movie kind of picked up a lot. It just which bad we'll get to later was the parts building up to that point. But for me, that was what was best.
Yes, I mean I can agree that the Venom parts where he's talking and telling him he's a loser and
you're a loser.
and all that stuff where he's basically became like a matchmaker and was like trying to get him and his girlfriend. I know, like those were definitely some of the best parts of the movie.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of what was Spider-Man's like suit name, Karen or whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
She's like lean in and kiss her. And he's like no, and it's like like it's this little voice in the back of your head like trying to get you to do stuff.
Yeah. So like that definitely was the best part of for me. That was like the best part of the movie was like the Venom. The Venom quips, his funny parts, that whole thing. Other goods, Michelle Williams. I've, been a fan of her since Dawson's Creek, so it was, I had to kind of like, she kind of looked like her character from Dawson's Creek because she had like the long like blonde wig because normally she has like super short hair. And so I was like, is she her character from Dawson's Creek? But so yeah, like I liked her even though she was in it for like 5 minutes. I liked her character. I liked her portrayal. I think, those were...
And then another good thing at the very end, the end credits scene with Carnage. So as soon as it said, whatever prison it was, I was like, oh, I totally knew where they were going with
San
it.
Quentin. Yeah.
San Quentin prison. I was like, oh, okay, they're doing Carnage, which I kind of figured they would anyway. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, this is the scene they're going to be introducing Carnage.
And it was Woody
Harrelson. Which I didn't even know. I didn't read anything about it.
I remember like them saying he was going to be in it, but his part was like kept under wraps, and then I totally forgot that he was supposed to be in it, and then I was just like, oh yeah.
So when I saw him, I was like, I feel like he's going to be a really good. He's gonna do a really good job playing Carnage. The only bad thing about that scene was when he was like, "Oh, when I get out, like it's gonna be Carnage."
Oh yeah, that was like
that's a line that
was a complete eye roll. I was like,
it's
we get it. A little too on the nose, like.
Yeah, it's like that line was a little cheesy, and they could have found a different way to approach that if you wanted just to let people know this is Carnage. Like it's either people who don't know who Carnage is aren't going to care.
Still going to get that reference.
I know. It's like, it's like people who, if you cut that line out, it's like people who don't know who Carnage is, I mean, they're not going to care about this guy right now anyway, and the people who do know who Carnage is already knew who he was before he said the word, So
they could, I feel like he should just be like, when I get out, and then, like, they should have cut, like, and then it would have, like, left, like, a suspense, like, yes, what?
I was kind of hoping that they were going to show... like the symbiote, because like
symbiote, yes. Okay, so that's another good thing.
They changed that from the
so they obviously went and re-recorded how people were saying symbiote because in the first trailer they were like symbiote,
and then everyone gave them crap for it, and then they're like crap. They gotta go back and change that.
Yeah, so now all of a sudden it's symbiote. So I thought that was funny. I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, he went in, had people re-record their lines, and be like, let's fix this. So yeah, that was also a good thing. Anyways, you were...
Oh, I was just gonna say really quick that obviously they weren't gonna give too much away in that scene, but I really would have liked to have seen the red symbiote suit around for Carnage, but I was hoping it was gonna kind of end with hit crawling up him or whatever the case may be, and just getting a tiniest glimpse of it. But I'm like, oh, that was too hopeful wishing.
Yeah,
they're gonna save that.
And the other good thing was the final end credit scene. Which,
oh yeah, we get
Into the Spider-Verse.
a
we got
4-minute
this whole
clip
this whole straight 3-minute scene of Into the Spider-Verse, which I was
us really excited.
I know it was so good, and I was like, man, then we have to wait a couple months.
I know, it doesn't come out until December.
I know, but it was really good. That little clip at the end made me. I mean, I was already excited to see it. Now I'm like, dang it, I want to watch it right now. But yeah, so those were a lot of the good parts. Some of the action scenes were good. I don't really have any issues with those.
No, I mean the final fight scene between him and Riot was fine. It was it's a little bit predictable, but I mean I guess that's kind of just how it is with so many superhero movies being out, that they all kind of follow a similar formula.
Yeah,
and so it's a lot of movies in general. I mean, especially action movies like this. I mean, it's all just not stage A, but the first act, second act, third act, and it's just all kind of kind of a similar pattern.
And then knock down and then build back up.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't have any issue with the CGI.
Oh, and female Venom was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, female Venom was funny, and that was. I mean, obviously, as soon as you see it, it's his girlfriend, but
Actually, I thought it was the Doctor.
No, she was dead.
I guess I didn't remember that she was already dead at that point.
No,
at first I thought it was the Doctor, and I was like, oh, and then she started kissing him, and I was like, oh, okay, no. That's his girlfriend, I hope.
But then she was like, oh, your friend told me to, and I'm like, oh, so Venom wanted to make out with Eddie. Which I guess he could, because his head can, form outside of Eddie.
That'd be a weird scene.
Just, making out on the couch.
It's alright.
This took a turn. Yeah, so so I didn't have any issue with the CGI. I thought the CGI looked,
Venom looked fine. He's missing, the white spider on his chest, or his back, or wherever it is. Because in the comics, he takes on kind of a little bit more of a Spider-Man look, because he originally... they could, but it wouldn't have made sense for why he would, because he'd never interacted with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, with that aside, he looked, the CGI and everything, it looked, it looked fine. There was no issue there.
No. So now the bad.
Oh, jeez. All right, now this is where the video really gets long now.
This is where people are gonna start hating us.
It's just like I talked about earlier. It's just the first about act and a half. Before he became, it was such a long wait for him to actually be Venom, which I understand. You can't start the movie.
Story. I know he's like, I'm Venom, and we're like, what?
It's you can't start the movie with him being Venom, obviously, or even 5 minutes in, he just found Venom, and it's you take off like that. So I understand why that has to be a little bit of a wait, but I feel it just kind of dragged on a little too much. They were trying to make you I guess care about the characters and everything like that. But they didn't really do that successfully.
No.
I was just I don't really care. I only started to care about Eddie Brock after he became Venom. Venom brought out the best parts of him.
Yeah.
And so I'm him by himself, that whole story that they were trying to build up to. I'm it didn't do it for me.
No.
It just I was I don't really care about anything that's going on until he became Venom.
That was one of my things that I didn't like. I just thought. This is gonna get me a lot of hate, but I just thought Tom Hardy was awful.
I feel he wasn't as bad as in the trailers. In the trailers, his acting didn't seem like it was gonna be the way he said certain things. When he was in the thing and he was oh, I'm good at whatever, but you suck. But they kind of either reshot it or they just did it a different way, because he didn't say it that same way. And I feel it wasn't as bad as the trailers were. I'm not a Tom Hardy hater. I didn't mind it. He was in
I don't
Inception.
hate him. I'm not a huge fan, but
I don't know if he would have been my number one casting choice for this role. No. But it didn't. His role, his portrayal didn't necessarily take me out. It wasn't...
Oh, see, it completely... The first half, it, completely took me out, because I just kept, I was just you're not pulling it off. Because, he was almost trying to play Eddie as like this awkward, like, oh, blah blah blah, and I was like, you're not pulling that off, and this shy kind of timid, whatever, and it just, none of it worked, and it was completely taking me out. So once he became Venom, like you said, like it did make it kind of made him better. There were still some issues, like even when he was Venom, where I was just like, oh, Tom Hardy. But the second half was definitely a lot better. But yeah, the first half, I was laughing at things that probably weren't meant to be laughed at, because it was just like, I just thought his acting was not that great. I mean, it could be a combination of acting, writing, I don't know, but it was just, I just didn't think he pulled it off.
Another issue is, I mean, this isn't the Eddie Brock and Venom from the source material.
Or from Spider-Man 3.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, they're trying to. I mean, I know what they're trying to do. You can't make a movie like this and where it's focusing on him and stay true to what the comics are, especially when you're not having Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is a big part of the origin. And so, like, he's not, like, even in the trailers, it was talking about, like, oh, there's enough heroes in the world, or, enough, or whatever, like, making a play on, Marvel, DC, all these superhero movies that are coming out, and that this was going to be different because it's, like, a villain movie, but I'm like, it wasn't. I'm like, even they're supposed to say, like, oh, he's an anti-hero, and I'm like, yeah, like, he, eats bad guys' heads, but I'm like, I didn't get that feeling that, like, this was, like, an anti-hero movie, even. Like, this wasn't, like, The Punisher. Like, when you watch The Punisher, you're like, oh, geez, like, this guy just, he'll wipe out, like, he'll just kill and, like, do whatever is necessary. And, like, I don't get that same kind of anti-hero feeling from it. Like, to me, this felt like a hero story, a hero movie.
Yeah.
And because even, Marvel and DC alike, they kill bad guys in their movies. Like, that's, they're not necessarily shying away from that. So I'm like, is everybody an anti-hero? But the, going away from the source material is that Eddie Brock wasn't like this, oh, nice guy, trying, with this, alternate persona that's trying to, like, make him, like, evil or whatever. Like, he hated Spider-Man. Eddie Brock hated Spider-Man, and the symbiote hated Spider-Man, which is why they formed that bond, and then they replaced that in the movie with, oh, we're both losers from our own planet. And I'm like, that didn't do it for me. I'm like, in the comics it was a much better, because it was, their bond was fueled by rage for the same person. Like, Eddie Brock wasn't necessarily, like, an evil person or a villain per se, but he hated Spider-Man and he hated Peter Parker, and he wanted to kill him. And I'm like, and that doesn't necessarily make you a good guy either. And so I'm like, he was a villain. I mean, Venom was a villain in the comics. He wasn't he may have become, I haven't read every Venom comic, so I mean, at some point he may have become an anti-hero, or may have, done, I know there's been like Venom had, like, joined, like, the Fantastic Four at one point or whatever out in space, so, like, he at one point may have been, a hero later on, but his origin story with, going against Spider-Man, he was a villain. He wasn't anything else other than that.
Yeah.
And I'd talked with somebody before I had seen the movie about Venom in general, and they're like, and they had seen it, but we didn't really talk about anything spoilerish. They just said that, they're like, this Eddie Brock, they're like, he wouldn't go after Spider-Man. Like, if they brought Spider-Man into this universe, like, they wouldn't, like,
there wouldn't be a need to.
Right. It's like he wouldn't want to, or he wouldn't let Venom, like, butt heads with Spider-Man like he did in the comics. It's like, so this is a very different Eddie Brock, a very different Venom than the source material. Not saying that it's necessarily, bad, it's just, it's different than what people were anticipating and what people wanted, I feel like. And so that's maybe part of the reason why it's been getting a lot of flashback.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, to have Venom with Spider-Man, I mean, and the story told right, it would have been really good.
Yeah. Especially because, Tom Holland is a good Spider-Man, so it's like, you have a good Spider-Man, you have, I would have preferred somebody else cast as Eddie Brock. But, it could have been really good. But since it's kind of getting mixed, and there are, Marvel's probably like, that's why you're not in the MCU.
That's why he gave what's her name that look when she was like, oh yeah, it's part of the MCU, like, early on.
Kevin
Feige looked over at her and was like,
he's like, we need to talk. No, it's not. So I mean, if you're a fan of Venom, I mean, I would say go check it out, and you can kind of make your own conclusions of what you like and dislike. It might be the same or different from our views.
Because I didn't think it was as bad as what critics are saying. Like, it's getting like a 30 or 20 something % on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I'd probably give it a solid 7.5 maybe pushing for 8 if I'm in a good mood, out of 10. Like,
I wouldn't give it that much.
I thought it, I mean, it wasn't as good as it could have been. There's a lot of issues with it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like the second half of it really
Yeah, the
made
second
it
half
better
definitely
for me.
was a lot better.
It's just unfortunately you have to sit through the first half to get to the second half. But one other quick little thing that I wanted to bring up that I had a real problem with is another thing. How I would make this movie better is one.
Throw it out and start over.
No. But kind of shorten that first half of the movie a little bit more. Make Eddie Brock Venom a little bit sooner, not like right away, but like just a little bit sooner than what they did, to kind of shorten that little like time period where you're just waiting. Like, come on, like let's get to it already.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is I would. Because Venom, he has his own motive of, he wants to bring his race to Earth, and they're just gonna eat and devour everything, and then move on. They're parasites essentially. And then he changed and was like, oh, I want to, I'm gonna fight against Riot, like I'm gonna protect Earth. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, like, well, why, how come you changed your mind or whatever? And it's just like, oh, you changed my mind. And I just feel like they didn't give that was like a really like just bad like cheesy excuse like, oh, you changed my mind.
But we didn't
like,
actually see that.
Yeah, they didn't.
There wasn't enough struggle between him and Venom once they were.
It's like Eddie Brock gave Venom no reason to think that way and to change his mind. It wasn't like, oh, something happened and Venom's like, oh, like.
Yeah.
It wasn't that moment like, oh, where it's like Venom like sees the light or whatever.
Yeah.
It was like, so maybe introducing Venom earlier on and making Eddie Venom earlier would have given them more time together, and maybe you could have had that moment where it's like, oh, I understand why Venom has changed. Or it's like, while I was watching that, I was like, I don't understand why Venom changed. Right? Eddie Brock has done nothing really to convince them of such things. So I was just like, I felt like that was just a really quick like scapegoat, like, oh, you've changed me, Eddie. And it's
well,
like,
when he said that, I think that was one of the parts where I laughed, and I was just like, what?
So, like, yeah, if they could have changed that moment, I feel like it would have made it a much more powerful scene and a much more overall effective story if we could have seen a little bit more of that progression in Venom rather than just have it be so quick.
Yeah, because we didn't really see much, like, back and forth between them. Like, not really. And then, like... then all of a sudden he's changed.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like Eddie being like, no, you can't do that, we have to do this. I mean, he said it a couple times, but it wasn't like anything where he was trying to like make Venom see the light or something.
Right.
It was just, it was, yeah.
So that was just that. I mean, that would be just two quick changes. Oh, not quick, but those are just two changes that
just,
that I would have made to the movie, which I feel like it would have, made it better. Who knows? I'm not a professional writer yet. But. But maybe that would have made the movie worse. Who knows? But that's just how I feel. I feel like that would have made the movie a little bit better, a little bit stronger of a hit. But that's pretty much all I gotta say about it.
I mean, I don't have much else to say. I mean, like we said, there are things that were good about it, things that were not so good. Let us know what you guys think, if you agree or disagree with our likes and dislikes. Let us know if you've seen it. If you
haven't seen it, I don't know why you've watched it this long. Like, we just told you everything.
Okay, so start. We open on no. But yeah, so let us know what you guys thought in the comments. Like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.